Hey all, here OS Reviews. I always enjoy looking at unique gadgets, and that's one of the reasons why I love the Yoda phone so much when it first came out. It has this distinctive dual screen form factor, and the rear display being made out of ink is just ultra cool, making it very comfortable on your eyes for reading back longer books and articles, and also draws very little power because of its technology. It doesn't drain any juice until you refresh the pages. And so I was really excited when I learned about this phone case accessory that's called the Oaxis ink case for iPhones a few years back. However, back then the price was a little high. It retailed for around 80 bucks. And in this instance, the e-ink display measures only around 2 inches diagonally, so it's much smaller than on the Yoda phone. Still use it for things like taking a look at notifications, displaying a clock, and customizing the look on the back of the phone, which I thought was really neat. Well, a few years later, and you can now find them directly on Amazon for a vastly reduced price, as low as 10 bucks, and that's as cheap as cases, even regular ones that don't have a second display, sell for. So I thought it would be a good chance to pick one up. This version here is designed for the iPhone 6, 6S, 7, 8, also fits the new iPhone SE, any iPhone that has a 4.7-inch display. So it's still compatible with kind of newer devices today. Also download a companion application and connect it to the iPhone using Bluetooth whenever you're syncing information over. The technical specifications for the e-ink panel are also displayed down below. Inside of the packaging, we have just the case here right on top. We have the kind of maple wood edition here, and there's also a quick manual or guide on the rear that says how to fit it in. Obviously, you have to be a bit more delicate when putting in the phone because you can't bend the back of your case as much since there's a display and more circuitry underneath it, but the corners and edges, just like other bumper cases, are still made out of this durable rubber and should be drop and shock resistant. And on the edge here is actually the contacts for charging, which says InkCase looks like this, so it is proprietary, make sure you don't lose it, but it is pretty easy just to stick on there for charging. Now, because of the ink display, you don't have to charge it super often. It's similar to some smart wristbands or activity trackers. The battery life is rated to last around 3 weeks or so. With that being said, I would have still preferred to see this charging mechanism maybe housed on the side, so you don't have to remove the phone every single time you want to get into this charging component. Let's peel off this screen protector on the front. And again, the thing with e-ink displays is it's not backlit, so the brighter it is around you, such as if you're outdoors and reading it directly in the sun, it's super visible just like paper. Instead of comparing it directly with the Yoda phone, it might be more fair to compare it as a ticker display. Certain devices which have a smaller screen in addition to the larger front display that shows you additional information at a glance. Samsung also has a few of those devices in the past. You can use it for a boarding pass if you're on a flight. You can use it to store something like a shopper's card, which I think is pretty neat. Now, the companion application is called InkCase. Once you open it up, you can connect to multiple devices. Anyways, here we can see some quick wallpapers that you can generate and send over to the display. You can obviously also add your own from your photo library and translate it into this black and white image. You can also tap over here to add any QR codes for membership cards. Second tab, which is reminders, can push over things like missed messages from social media, phone calls, things like that. Under My Ink Case, that's where you'll be able to sign in to create an account, change the language, see if there's any firmware updates, as well as connect to the ink case itself. And we're able to see the case here, and after connecting, it will automatically refresh the time that you see here on the clock. We can tap on the send to ink case, it'll take just a few seconds, and afterwards the display here will refresh. As you can see there, it seems just printed on there. However, it's also at this point where the fun kind of stops. That's because it seems like the inventory that's been sitting on Amazon maybe has been there for too long, or maybe QA just wasn't very rigorous, and there seems to be a high rate of defects with the batteries in the sense that it just no longer holds a charge, which is such a shame because as it is, again, this was brand new in the box, but whenever we remove it from the charging cable, irregardless of how long you leave it charging, it's no longer reactive. You can't tap on any of the controls or keys. Nothing actually works until you reconnect it to power. It will flicker and then try to reconnect again, and then just work for a few seconds before you have to try and plug it back in. So the battery is completely dead. And the unfortunate thing is it doesn't seem to be an isolated case. In fact, I took a closer look at some reviews through the past few months, and several users had the same experience. Maybe not to the same extent of having a dead unit out of the box immediately, but it was definitely a growing trend. Basically, the display and smart functions are just no longer operable unless you want to change the wallpaper, which you can still do by connecting it to power, and then when you're connected, you can change it once, and once you remove it from power, the display still remains on the last image, since again e-ink has a persistent screen. When it's showing something without changing, it doesn't draw any power. So technically you can still add some customization and graphics to the screen, and whenever you connect to it, maybe change the visual, but you lose all the functionality of the smart connected notifications, the clock won't refresh. So a lot of that selling point and functionality has just been thrown out the window because of this manufacturing defect, which is really a shame. So while we are connected to power, we can cycle through some of these features, including the activity log or memo pad that you can use to share notes to do things on here. You can see that the screen does tend to cut off a few of the words if they're too long, but it is still very much readable, just like on a Kindle e-reader. Downwards arrow indicates you should press this key there to go down the list, and then tap again to go up to the previous page and show you those kind of quick notifications, as well as cycle back and forth between the widgets. This is the calendar function, so it gives you a demo of if you have certain events logged, it will tell you when those will happen. Notifications, if they worked, could also be filtered by keywords. So only if the subject of the message contains things like urgent or a certain word would it actually go through to the case and then draw a little less power. Customize the display, change the order of the widgets and functions, and delete certain things that you don't need. So that's been a look at the Oaxis InkCase IVY here in 2020. Really is a shame, since because of the fact that, again, the battery no longer really holds a charge even on these newer units, the functionality of the ink display here is much reduced. To access any of the abilities, such as changing the wallpaper, you have to basically connect it to power every time. So really, if you're buying one now, you have to just use it as a regular case. It's definitely something I would like to see return in the future, perhaps by another manufacturer, or with higher manufacturing quality and control, they can get it right. And with more optimization of the software, it could definitely be a hit and something that more folks would be interested in picking up. So anyways, thanks for watching this video. Here are OS reviews. That's been the Oaxis InkCase IVY, a ink display case for smartphones.